against a Republican, and they were very meticulous and spent a whole lot of money to do that.
Yeah, I mean, Schiff's strategy was to trump up Garvey, make Garvey like
Trump
his
up
key.
is the right word, too.
And to make him a Trump person and to also bolster him in the polls. Schiff got what he wants. Schiff is facing Garvey. Schiff looks like he's pretty likely to be able to pull off a victory in November. Garvey will still try, but like Garvey did so well compared to where he was just 2 months ago. And Schiff also has done really well, but has been working at this meticulously, like you said, for 2 years.
Well, and you guys run polling at USC. You're in charge of that, and you've seen this big rise for Steve Garvey. So Schiff wanted to do this because he thinks it's easy to beat a Republican. One poll showed him up 15 points over Garvey to start off. Does Garvey have a shot? And if so, what would he have to do to pull off what a lot of people see as the impossible?
You never want to rule anyone out because, you know, it's a big state and you never know what might happen. But I think Schiff is very likely to be the next senator. I don't see Garvey having a lot of a chance. You know, I mean, maybe if the Dodgers win this year and there's some really good feeling in October around the Dodgers, he still might have a chance. But I really think Schiff is in the driver's seat here.
I mean, I think he has to run against the state of California, hope he can make it all about local issues and not about Trump, hope that Biden is sort of stumbling and Trump isn't as bad, and maybe he gets a shot somehow. Meanwhile, Katie Porter, she now had to give up her House seat in order to do this. She'll still be serving until January of next year in that House seat, but somebody else is going there. What's next for her?
Yeah, I mean, I think Katie Porter's really kind of stuck. She's done right now. She can't run for the House. I don't know what she's going to do next. She really didn't grow her numbers at all from early polling. She doesn't have a route now to go run for something else statewide because her performance, in my opinion, is relatively weak compared to the other two candidates. She might go back to run for the House in 2026. You know, if a Republican ends up winning her seat, she might go back to run there. But also there's a decent chance a new Democrat's going to win, and she's not going to be able to come back to the House seat either.
We know that she lives in faculty housing at UCI. She may be a law professor once again. Who knows? Or maybe run for governor or something else here in the state of California. Who knows?
It's possible. Then the faculty housing at UCI is very nice, but she probably would prefer to be in Washington.
I'm sure that's true. Christian, great to see you. You will stay with us for more analysis throughout the night. We will have more as we continue. Christine, we're heading over to you right now.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Taking a live look right now. Very busy right here as the vote counting is going on right now. This is the City of Industry. Be right back with more election night team coverage. back to this special edition of the Fox 11 News.
Super Tuesday, primary election day. The polls are closed and the ballots are being counted.
All right, let's look at the latest numbers in the primary for president in this state. Joe Biden winning, and it's not close, 90% over Marianne Williamson, the Democratic challenger, at 3%. Donald Trump winning big as well in California. Remember, if he gets over 50%, he gets to take all of the delegates. There are more delegates in California than any other state. Donald Trump looking like he will easily get over 50% now at 76% of the vote. Donald Trump speaking at Mar-a-Lago earlier tonight.
They call it Super Tuesday for a reason. This is a big one. Our poll numbers are so much higher than Joe Biden's. He's the worst president in the history of our country. There's never been anything like what's happening to our country. All of the problems that you have today, I don't think you would have had any of them. You'd only have success, and that's what's ultimately going to unify this country and unify this party. We have a great Republican Party with tremendous talent. We had the best economy our country's ever had, and people were calling me that I would have said will never happen. It'll never happen. They wanted to get together African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, women, men, people with diplomas from the best schools in the world, and people that didn't graduate from high school. Every single group was doing better than ever before, and it was a beautiful thing. Our country was coming together.
So, Nikki Haley was supposed to have an event tonight in South Carolina. That was canceled at the last minute. She has no events scheduled for tomorrow in terms of campaign events. She put out a statement tonight which did not say that her campaign goes on. So it would not be surprising if tomorrow or the day after, Nikki Haley officially dropped out of the race and Donald Trump officially became the de facto Republican nominee.
Makes a lot of sense, but did she think she was going to do that much better tonight?
Well, she did win in Vermont, which a lot of people didn't expect.
It's one.
That was one state, and not exactly known, Marla, as the Republican stronghold.
No, not at all. And of course, as we recall, she did not even win her home state. But her statement, though, tonight didn't say that she was going to drop out either.
Right.
And that's telling. But then again, it's probably just buying some time to see.
And to think it over. I mean, it's a tough decision, and try to figure out in terms of the money and all the rest of it. But over the weekend, she said, we want to see what the voters tell us. And the voters in almost every state pretty resoundingly said, in terms of Republicans, we want Trump.
So we know this is Super Tuesday, but still, there are still more delegates to be had to secure that nomination.
Donald Trump over halfway there now. But yeah, there still is more time to go before that convention this summer.
I do want to remark, though, quickly, the fact, what you pointed out, that so much dissatisfaction, right, among voters, whether it's for Trump or for Biden, yet you still pick Biden and you still pick Trump.
70% of the country does not want there to be a Biden-Trump rematch, and yet people are voting for Joe Biden with 90% of the vote, 76% of the vote for Trump. People say we want somebody else, but then they never vote for anybody else.
But some would say, what other choices do we have that are really viable for a win here? So if Nikki Haley does get out of the race, where do her votes go? Do those people say, okay, I stick with the Republicans and I'm going to suck it up and vote Trump even though I don't want
And
Trump?
Then the other question is, do some of them maybe go to a third party? Remember, Robert F. Kennedy is running, other folks. That's another potential variable in this that we don't quite know what that'll mean in terms of November. All right, we are going to move on now and talk more about some of the local races happening here.
We have a live, we have a look right here at the numbers for the United States Senate race. We now know that Adam Schiff will face off with Republican Steve Garvey. Both have given their speeches for the evening tonight. This is looking how it was going to shape up anyway throughout the week. And now we know that there's the short term and the full term. And you see the numbers right there. It's going to be a battle between a Democrat and a Republican as we head into November for this race for United States Senate.
Laura Diaz is at Steve Garvey headquarters in Palm Desert. Matthew Seedorf is with disappointed Katie Porter fans in Long Beach. But let's start things off with Phil Schuman, who is in Hollywood with Adam Schiff. And Phil, this is the biggest night of Adam Schiff's political career, the most triumphant moment he's ever had, and yet he basically didn't get to give his speech tonight.
It was a remarkable few minutes here at the historic Avalon Theater in Hollywood. As you mentioned, Alex, so correctly, what should have been perhaps the most triumphant night of Schiff's political career, a major step towards becoming the next senator from California, disrupted when all of a sudden protesters in the crowd started criticizing him for his support of Israel. Clearly flustered, Adam Schiff, his wife and his daughter on stage with him, said it's wonderful that we live in democracy where people are allowed to protest. But he was repeatedly distracted and seemed to cut his thank you speech short as protesters chanted, "Let Gaza live, let Gaza live," drowning him out as security moved them out. This is some of what Schiff was able to say.
We are so lucky to live in a democracy where we all have the right to protest. We are so lucky to live in that kind of democracy, and we want to make sure that we keep this kind of democracy.
Nothing about himself, nothing about the future plans, nothing about Steve Garvey. This was a Schiff watch party, of course, but people were able to sign up on a campaign website. This was not invitation only, and that's how this group of anti-Schiff protesters was able to get into the Avalon. There was a small group out of hundreds, and this morning, coincidentally, which they probably did not realize, Schiff did call for a pause in the fighting, but made it conditional on Hamas releasing all the remaining hostages. So this, of course, is going to be an issue going forward. Alex, Christine, Marla?
Phil, you've been such a longtime follower of this stuff. What do you make of Adam Schiff, the strategy, and his sort of focus on this seat really for almost 15 years? I've been talking to him about this seat.
Well, I think that this is part of his career path. I mean, he came out of Harvard Law School. He went to work as a prosecutor. He was an elected official in the state. Then he went to the House for, I believe, 12 terms. And this is the next logical step in his career. And Steve Garvey was the best present he ever got because he was able to capitalize on his strategy of promoting Garvey at the expense of his fellow Democratic rivals, Porter and Lee, and essentially guaranteeing himself a seat in the Senate because Democrats outnumber Republicans 2-1 in the state. So aside from the protesters tonight, which is going to be something he's going to have to deal with and did not deal with it well, Adam Schiff has to be feeling pretty good about his future.
Yeah, a reminder of the issues he would deal with as well in the Senate. He's going to have to deal with in the House as he heads back to Washington for the State of the Union in just a few days. Phil Schuman, thank you for your reporting tonight.
Yeah, that State of the Union coming up on Thursday. We take you back here with a live look back at home. This is a picture from the City of Industry. This is the facility where the registrar is counting votes. 1, 2, 3, we're counting the people inside, and maybe about 15 people we can count there, and you can see people moving through, and there's a lot of work still that needs to be done. And as many of those people dropped off their ballots today, those votes will be coming in for several days to come.
In the fall, control of the U.S. House could come down to a few California districts, and we are getting a better look tonight at who will be running in those districts. In the 40th district, Republican Young Kim is the incumbent, and it looks like she's going to be running against Joe Kerr, who's a Democrat and a former firefighter. Let's go to the 41st district. You're going to be hearing a lot about that one coming up in the fall. This is a race where Ken Calvert is the Republican incumbent, has been in that seat for a long time. Will Rollins, the Democrat, ran against him last time, almost beat him last time. You see how close this race is. It'll be Calvert versus Rollins in the fall. We take you now to the 45th Congressional District. Michelle Steele is the incumbent in that race, and there is a close race between two Democrats here. to try to run against Michelle Steele. That race still too close to call. The 27th district is where Mike Garcia is the incumbent. He has survived very close races in the past against Christy Smith, beat her 3 times, a Democrat. Democrats have a new Democrat that they're excited about. His name is George Whitesides. He's a former executive in the aerospace industry. He will be facing off against Mike Garcia in the fall. Expect a whole lot of money to be pumped into that race for both Garcia and Whitesides. That's one of those seats that could determine control of the U.S. House. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Tonight, incumbent George Gascon is leading the LA County DA primary race, followed by former federal prosecutor Nathan Hochman. Here's a look at the latest results from the county registrar. You see him taking the lead there. Hochman, number 2. Jonathan Hatami, deputy DA, is in 3rd place tonight with 12% of the vote. And Jeff Chemerinsky is 4th with 7% of the vote as well. Okay, we spoke to DA George Gascon a little bit earlier tonight. This was right before the polls closed. Here was some of what he had to say.
The feeling of insecurity that we see in our community and we see around the country is legitimate. You know, we still have a tremendous problem with mental health problems. You have a lot of problems with homelessness. The impact that has in how we feel about ourselves, especially when you're walking, you're seeing people that are clearly in a mental health crisis and they're not getting the services and they're not getting the attention that they need, is something that needs to be addressed.
This primary vote is seen as a referendum on Gascon's reform agenda, which opponents blame for rising crime. Now, despite tonight's presumptive win for Gascon, his 11 challengers collectively received a higher percentage of the vote. Now, this sets the stage for a one-on-one showdown in November, most likely with Nathan Hochman. Fox 11's Gina Silva, she's live at Hochman's headquarters in Brentwood now, and she joins us live. Hi, Gina.
Hi, Marla. Yes, as we talked earlier, you know, this party was very much alive a little while ago, but everyone is pretty much going home. The people here are reporters, photographers, and Nathan Hochman is still here tonight talking to reporters. But as you said it, this is one of the races with the most candidates. 11 people say they can do a better job than George Gascon. Take a look at this very long list. 5 of the candidates running for LA District Attorney are prosecutors, members of George Gascon's office. Jonathan Hatami, John McKinney, Lloyd Bobcat Mason, Maria Ramirez, and Eric Siddell. There are 3 LA County Superior Court judges, Deborah Archuleta, Craig Mitchell, and David S. Milton, who retired in 2014. Jeff Chemerinsky is an assistant U.S. attorney, Nathan Hochman, a U.S. assistant attorney general, and criminal defense attorney Dan Kapelovitz. Now, throughout the day, we spoke with many of these candidates. This is what they had to say.
There's a lot of good candidates running, and I think anybody pretty much would be better than George Gascon.
If the goal is to remove Gascon, looking at the demographic of LA County, MAGA white male Republicans are not going to beat him. We don't want people on the hard left. We've been already living through that for 4 years with the man. We need to have someone who has a moderate approach with experience, who believes in law and order, who is a judge, who will follow the law when I raise my right hand to take the oath to assume the office as your next district attorney.
My life started in poverty. I lost both my parents at an early age. I overcame that adversity and so much more in my life. And here I am, poised to have an opportunity to run the largest local criminal justice organization in the country. How can I feel anything other than inspired and grateful?
And we'll have more interviews with the other candidates in our next hit at 11 p.m. I'll send it back to you, Marla.
I just want to make one correction on my end. When we show the graphic, we were looking that Chemerinsky was placing polling number 4, but that was actually Judge Deborah Archuleta, who you just heard from. She is polling at 9%. Again, more votes coming in tonight. Christine?
Thank you, Marla. Governor Gavin Newsom had been pushing Prop 1. He says it's crucial to help solve the state's homeless problem. I'll talk to our guest, Dr. Christian Gross, about the measure when we come back. Welcome back to our election coverage. We check the results for the only statewide proposition on the ballot. Prop 1, which would provide $6 billion to build housing for the homeless and treatment for mental health challenges. We're looking right here at the numbers. 41% of the precincts coming in. You saw the numbers right there. It's ahead. Now to LA City Proposition HLA, which provides money for bike and bus lanes and to make streets safer for pedestrians and bicyclists. The numbers right here are coming in at this hour as a yes as well. So let's break it all down for you. Joining us now is Dr. Christian Gross, a professor of political science and public policy at USC. We thank you for coming in. Let's talk Prop 1. What are you seeing here?
Yeah, so it looks like Prop 1 is ahead, and this is something Gavin Newsom was really pushing. I think we got to wait a little bit just to make sure, but it looks like it's going to pass. And so it shows that there's still appetite among the voters to do something, especially about the mental health crisis, the mental health among homeless people.
Well, we see it every day on our streets, the homeless, those with mental illness. I'm looking at the endorsements, though. LA Times said yes. Orange County Register said no. Governor Newsom pushing this one. What does it say if this does or doesn't pass?
Yeah, I mean, I think if it passes, it's a win for Newsom. He really got behind this, and it's a little bit of a risk to put something like this on a primary ballot, because the primary ballot tends to be a little bit more Republican, tends to be people who don't like to necessarily reallocate tax dollars, which is what this proposition does. And so, you know, Newsom can say, I went for it on a primary and I won, assuming things continue to go the way they are. So I think Newsom can count it as a win.
When do you think we get full numbers on that one?
So I think we're going to probably know within the next couple days, but because so many people vote by mail in the state, it could take a week or two until we are definitively sure that the proposition
So
passed.
stand by both sides.
Yeah.
All right, HLA, LA City measure, where does that stand right now in your eyes?
Yeah, so HLA was to put in new bus lanes, new bike lanes. That looks like it's going to pass. I mean, we still have to wait. There's a lot of ballots to count, but 2/3 of the voters have supported it. And so that looks like we're going to be seeing new changes to the roads coming to our streets, more bikes, more buses.
Are you surprised at all by those numbers early on still? Because there was a lot of opposition on this one as well. So in my eyes, as this was coming up, I could see it maybe going either way.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised because it wasn't clear to me that there were as many people backing it and there was opposition, but also the way that the ballot proposition was written, it's relatively straightforward, and I think that you know, some of the supporters for it, I think we're also making good cases. So it's a little surprising to me that it's ahead 2/3 to 1/3, but I'm not surprised that's passing.
Opponents were feeling it didn't make LA safer. It did cost money. Your thoughts on how LA would change if this does indeed pass?
Yeah, I mean, the opponents were primarily people who worried about fire safety, saying fire trucks and other emergency vehicles might not be able to get through as fast. On the other hand, you know, people who are regular bike users, people who use buses will now be able to, it'll be faster to take the bus. People will maybe be less likely to be hit by bikes with new bike lanes going in. And then I think in general, it's going to open up some changes to the roads that have sort of been in have been in wait for a while, that now with this passing are going to go forward.
And are you waiting to see for the final count on this one before you celebrate?
I'm pretty confident that this one's going to pass based on the numbers we've got so far.
Thanks for your perspective on this election night. All right, Alex Marr, let me send it back to you.
It'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of traffic and in terms of how much money that eventually ends up costing. We are not done yet. We've got more news ahead.
Much more Super Tuesday election night coverage ahead. Stay with us.
watching Fox 11's Election Night coverage. I'm Alex Michelson.
And I'm Christine Devine. The votes are being counted as we speak.
And I'm Marla Tejas. Thanks for being with us. Welcome to this special Super Tuesday Election Night edition of the Fox 11 News.
Let's take a look now at some of the big races playing out right now.
The big story in California, the U.S. Senate. Adam Schiff, the Democrat, and Steve Garvey, the Republican, will be facing off against each other in the November election. Right now, Schiff at 36%, Garvey at 30%, way ahead of Katie Porter, who will hope to be in second place. This is the look for the partial term now. This is the person that will take over from November to January. Similar numbers there, 33-32. Schiff and Garvey will be facing off against each other for both the partial term and full term in November.
Just one statewide ballot initiative for voters to decide. This has to do with mental health. Right now, it's looking ahead. But those numbers right there, they could change as more votes are being counted. Keeping a watch on that one.
And we take a live look from the city of Industry, where all the ballots in L.A. County are being counted. We'll just take our word for it. They're busy.
Yeah.
Let's start our coverage tonight.
We have a lot to count.
Yes.
We begin tonight with a race for U.S. Senate. We have live team coverage. Laura Diaz is at Steve Garvey headquarters in Palm Desert. Matthew Seedorf, he is with Katie Porter in Long Beach. But we begin with Phil Schuman in Hollywood with Adam Schiff. Phil.
That's absolutely right.
Well, Adam Schiff was the front runner since he announced his candidacy for the U.S. Senate, Marla. So tonight's results were not a surprise. What was a surprise was what happened when Schiff took the stage to give a speech that was interrupted by protesters upset with his stance on the Gaza-Israel conflict. Schiff was able to speak a few words, including thanking the late Senator Dianne Feinstein.
Senator Feinstein, who was an incredible giant in the U.S. Senate, somebody who was not afraid to take on the biggest fights, but somebody who also knew how to get things done. And it's been my privilege to work with her when she was the head of the Intelligence Committee. And when I was working on the Senate side, when she was on the Senate side, I was working on the House side. But I also want to acknowledge again my great gratitude to all of my wonderful supporters.
Let Gaza live. Let Gaza live. Maybe 15 or 20 protesters shouting just feet away from the stage that Schiff was on, struggling to complete his speech on a teleprompter. His wife, his daughter, a number of supporters on the stage behind him. Security moved in and took them out, but they were not quieted. Schiff cut things short and left the stage. Now, just this morning, Schiff modified his stance somewhat on the Israel-Gaza conflict, saying he does support a pause in the fighting contingent on Hamas releasing the hostages. Now, Steve Garvey, Schiff's opponent, of course, now in November, has been steadfast in his support of Israel, but a much quieter scene at the Garvey Election Watch party out in the Coachella Valley, and that's where our Laura Diaz is live. Laura?
Thank you so much, Phil. Yes, we are here at Garvey headquarters, or I should say more specifically, they have started the cleanup, so we've actually moved into the main lobby. But as you mentioned, it was a happy night here tonight. About an hour and a half ago, candidate Garvey went up on the dais and gave just a really expressive, jubilant speech about how happy he was to be where he was. You're looking at video that was shot about an hour and a half ago. And, you know, up there he was surrounded by his family, and he was introduced by Riverside Sheriff Bianco. He gave his wife a kiss, and then he talked about his level of excitement tonight. Garvey, who of course was a star on the Dodgers, compared tonight to the feeling he had the first time he ever put on a Dodgers uniform. So that was a pretty scintillating description about what it felt like to embody what he was feeling here tonight and what he felt as a very young man the first time he played for the Dodgers. Now, in a heavily Democratic state, of course, he will have his work cut out for him. He's going to have to show major league poise and also some robust fundraising. But here's what he had to say earlier tonight on the dais.
Keep in mind, this is the first game of a doubleheader. So keep the evening of November 5th open, as we will celebrate again.
Of course, he was striking an optimistic chord there, but on balance, it's important to remember that a Republican has not won a statewide office here in the state of California since the year 2006. Now, with more on the very important election news, I'm going to send it out to my colleague, Matthew Seedorf. He's got more on this story. Matthew?
Well, Laura, a lot of disappointed supporters here for Katie Porter. The party wrapped up about an hour ago. They've already cleaned up shop here, but she never really officially conceded tonight, although she did say that they came up short on votes. Now, I do want to show you, this is some video from her out on the campaign trail. For the longest time, really, she was considered one of the top contenders in this Senate race, and tonight she seemed very much focused on the future, talking about policies, although she will be losing her seat in Congress next January. And now, while she never specifically named her opponents tonight, she seemed frustrated with all the campaign money used against her.
Special interests and billionaires spent close to $20 million attempting to keep me out of the Senate. Special interests and the ultra-wealthy, they like politics as it is today because they control the politicians. And like we've seen in this campaign, they spend millions to defeat someone who will dilute their influence and disrupt the status quo.
Definitely an emotional night for Porter and her family. They did not want to answer any questions from the media. Reporting live in Long Beach, Matthew Seedorf, Fox 11 News.
All right, Matthew, thank you. Now to that race to succeed Katie Porter in the House. California's 47th district, considered one of the most competitive in the country, could determine control of the House in November. You're looking at the names here. Scott Baugh is that Republican, and right now the race between those two Democrats is showing Dave Min ahead of Joanna Weiss. Let's go to Fox 11's Ed Lascos. He's live in Newport Beach at the Weiss Watch Party. Ed.
And Christine, you said very competitive and very contentious, this campaign, particularly between the two Democratic opponents, talking about Joanna Weiss and State Senator Dave Min. It has been going back and forth. I'm sure you've heard the mudslinging and the campaign ads, heard them on radio, watched them on television the last month or so. Let's get to it. To the video we go. This is from basically the campaign headquarters on this night for Joanna Weiss here at the main ballroom of the exclusive Pacific Club, Newport Beach. A large crowd here earlier, everybody watching the results coming in. You talk about this old-fashioned mudslinging that's been going on. Weiss and her campaign and her camp really recalling and targeting Dave Min and his DUI arrest last year. Min not taking that lightly, so he fired back with campaign ads of his own, alleging that Weiss was funding her campaign from money generated as an attorney representing legally sex offenders. So on and on it went, back and forth, a lot of mudslinging, a lot of bad feelings. More video now. This is Joanna Weiss entering the ballroom. Also a little while ago, the crowd screaming. She stopped, took pictures with a lot of folks, thanked all of the supporters, thanked the volunteers, and then took the podium saying it is way too early to know who's going to come out on top here in this primary. But one thing is certain, there's a lot at stake here, like the balance of power in the U.S. House of Representatives. Let's start it off with Joanna Weiss. Listen.
In the coming hours, we will know more about the votes that are being counted in this race. And until then, I would ask that you join me in celebrating the work that we've done, the movement that we've built, and our fight against extremism here in Orange County.
It's been, unfortunately, a negative campaign from both sides, and everybody who knows me knows that I kind of cringe at that. I don't really feel comfortable in that space, but the stakes are so high for the congressional seat.
This race is critical, absolutely critical, for us to take back the House in 2024. We know that the road to take back the House runs right through CD 47, and I believe Joanna Weiss is the candidate to do that.
And now live, you heard them say it. They believe it's very strongly. The road to taking back the House runs right through this congressional district here in the OC. Another name that bears mentioning is certainly the Republican Scott Baugh. You know that name, right? Sure you do. He's the one who gave Katy Perry a run for her money. I was thinking about this 2 years ago, and I'm thinking it was, I think, about 3 or 4 percentage points is what separated them in that battle, him and Porter. So it comes down to the wire, and many here feel that he is really the main opponent that they're going to have to deal with. But to to a person, one by one, they said it really comes down to the Democrats holding on to the seat, not losing it to the Republicans, and that very tenuous shift of power in the House of Representatives. For now, we're live here in Newport Beach. Back to the west side we go.
Ed, thank you. Of course, he's referring to Katie Porter, not Katy Perry, although it would be interesting if Katy Perry were to run. Who knows? In L.A., you never know what's going to happen.
This is L.A.
Two other races, I think, to keep an eye on. District 30, the congressional race, Laura Friedman doing especially well, the Democrat. District 31, Gil Cisneros, the Democrat, doing especially well. It looks like both of them are going to advance, potentially against Republican opponents.
Just talk about this Katie Porter seat for a second. Coming up towards November, a lot of money is going to go into that race.
Yeah, I've talked to strategists both for the Republicans and the Democrats that say that this is the most important seat in California. The breakdown of the seat is like 51 Democratic, 49 Republican. It's very close. Scott Baugh almost won it last time. And so there is going to be so much money poured into Scott Baugh's campaign from the Republicans, and looks likely like Dave Min is going to be the Democratic nominee there in Orange County.
And of course, he was here in our studio not long ago on the 6 o'clock show, and one of the things you asked about was the scar on his reputation of late, and that was the DUI that he got, and he owned up to it. And he said, he looked at the camera and he said, it was the worst mistake of my life. And I think that was a good moment for him in terms of, because that race was so accountability.
We're clearly going to hear a lot more about that DUI in the fall if he turns out to be the guy.
Because Joanna Weiss ran a lot of ads.
But it appears that voters didn't really care that much when it comes to tonight's results. Our Super Tuesday team coverage continues when we come back.
Up next, live with LA City Councilman Kevin De Leon. number of LA City Council races on the ballot. Here is one to watch. District 4, you have an incumbent, Nikki Rahman, and her numbers are at 45%. She faced a pretty serious challenge here by Ethan Weaver. He's a deputy city attorney. She's more of a progressive. His numbers right there neck and neck with her, so we'll watch this one for the final count. Let's move on to the next council race we're watching here. This is John Lee, District 12. He is polling a lot stronger than his opponent with these numbers coming in, and we'll see if he outright wins that seat there. All right, moving on here now. Incumbent LA City Councilman Kevin De Leon is leading in District 14 tonight as he works to redeem his reputation, of course, after that City Hall racism scandal. Fox 11's Christy Fajardo live in El Sereno at De Leon campaign headquarters. Christy.
Yeah, it wasn't long ago that political experts had written Councilmember Kevin De Leon's political obituary, especially after that racist recording of him and his colleagues was leaked. But tonight, he is here at Hecho in Mexico restaurant. He is surrounded by supporters, and in early results, he is in the lead, which could suggest that he could survive this primary. And we are joined by Councilman De Leon. And how are you feeling tonight?
You know, we're feeling good. We worked really hard. We didn't equivocate. We didn't capitulate. I owe everything to my staff. Done an incredible job, both on the city council side as well as my political staff. It's early. Listen, if we're so honored to enter the final round in November, we're going to work really hard to earn the trust, gain the trust of many of the voters once again.
So it sounds like you believe these numbers will hold and you will be in the November election.
Well, I think we like where we're at right now, but I'm not going to get ahead of myself either, too. You know, if I'm honored again by the voters to enter the final round, then we're going to work just as hard. But again, I'm not going to get ahead of myself, but we're happy where we're at right now.
And right now the results have you just under 30%. That would still mean that 70% of the votes cast have been cast against you.
I think there's a I don't think that I would take, umbrage to that, because I think you have another group of individuals, very fine individuals as well, too. So I don't think it's so much anti, as opposed you have a diverse collection of other candidates who are moving forward with their candidacies too. They're great folks as well.
And some of the other candidates that you mentioned, Wendy Carrillo, also Miguel Santiago, were one-time allies. What is the relationship like now?
Well, Wendy Carrillo, is a good person. I know that she's worked really hard in the California State Assembly. Miguel Santiago, it's something that's hurtful. It's painful. In politics, it's very, difficult. Like you said, if you want a friend in politics, go buy a dog, go get a dog, because that's about loyalty too. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it is politics. It's dirty, it's tough, it's a bloodthirsty sport. But we compete to have these positions of power to improve the human condition for all individuals, regardless of who you are and where you come from.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so
Appreciate it. And again, still early results, but as of now, Kevin De Leon is leading his challengers with just about under 30%. So we'll have to see if those numbers hold. Live in El Sereno, I'm Christy Fajardo. Listening back to you.
All right, Christy, thank you so much. We'll still ahead. We're going to talk more about the race for LA County District Attorney and George Gascon and his potential challenger in the fall. We'll do that with Dr. Christian Gross when we come right back. Welcome back. Let's talk about the race for LA County District Attorney. George Gascon pulling 23% of the vote tonight in first place. Right behind him, though, 18% is former federal prosecutor Nathan Hochman. I'm here with, by the way, Dr. Christian Gross of USC Public Policy, if I'm not mistaken. Good to have you with us tonight. What do you make of this? Are you surprised at all?
I'm not surprised that Gascon came in first, and I'm not surprised he only ended up with about 20%. He's really unpopular in the county. We did a poll at USC showing that he has disapproval rating of about 50%, but he is generally, you know, pulling about 15–20% in our poll, and that's what he's getting in the election results.
So he's going up against 11 challenger Hochman, though, with a pretty good showing tonight. Then again, he spent a lot of money. Is that what did this for him in terms of you saw his face a lot on television commercials?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. He spent the most money of all the candidates, and he's also been on the ballot previously running for Attorney General, so he had name recognition. But him coming in second is going to make this general election really interesting.
In what way? Because is this a gift to Gascon? This was just talking behind the scenes with Alex, the fact that Hochman, a former Republican, turned independent. Will that bode in Gascon's favor?
Yeah, I think that's going to help Gascon. I mean, Gascon's probably very happy that it's Hochman and not one of the other people. Hochman ran 2 years ago. He only got 33% of the vote in LA County when he had an R beside his name. He's now changed to be an independent, but expect Gascon to just say Hochman is a Republican, Hochman is a Republican, in a county that less than 20% of the voters are registered Republican.
Now, I know that you say that your polling showed that there's a lot of dislike with our current DA. Then again, he survived the recall attempts, more than one. 140,000 votes thus far. Again, would you be surprised if he ends up retaining it?
It would surprise me a little bit because he is in such a bad position for a DA, and an incumbent who's only getting 20-some% of the vote right now in a primary is a really bad sign. However, you know, he has won previously. Hochman has never won in LA County, so it wouldn't be out of the question for Gascon to pull it off in November, but he has a real uphill battle.
Okay, so I don't recall the number of percentage of precincts reporting at this point. A lot could change, but if it is, I want you to look at the crystal ball. If it is Hochman and Gascon in November, who pulls it off?
Oh, it's really hard. I would say I'd probably give slight edge to Hochman, but I would not be surprised if Gascon can really tag him as a Republican and pull it off in November too.
All right, we'll have to wait and see. Dr. Christian Gross, thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Marla. We'll be back with a final look at the numbers and some final thoughts. Stay with us. look at the numbers as we sign off. Adam Schiff and Steve Garvey will move on in the U.S. Senate race, both for the full term and for the partial term. Both of them performing better than they had in recent polls. A pretty tough night for Congresswoman Katie Porter of Irvine.
And the next race we want to look at is L.A. County District Attorney. And there you have it, the top three at this point, and still just 38% of precincts reporting. Gascon with 23% of the vote. Former federal prosecutor Nathan Hochman with 18%, and Jonathan Hatami with 12%, and let me correct myself, 39% of the vote of precincts reporting.
And there is this one statewide ballot initiative, just one for voters to consider. This is Prop 1. Right now, the numbers are looking a little close as we await the full count, and it may take some time, several days, maybe even a week or two, to find out the full results of this one. This is the one on mental health and homelessness, pushed big time by Governor Gavin Newsom. So this one, I think that you're going to have to wait and see how the ballots...
looking good. And I think this whole night is a reminder about the power of TV ads. Still, think about what you've seen on your TV the most in the last couple months. Ads for Adam Schiff talking about Steve Garvey, and ads for Nathan Hochman, and ads for Proposition 1 showing Governor Newsom. And all of those seem to be working. And the end result of this, you're going to hear a lot about Donald Trump in November. Not only because he's running here in California, but you will hear about Donald Trump and his connections to Steve Garvey, and Donald Trump and his connections to Nathan Hochman. Both Gascon and Schiff, if they had to pick an opponent, probably would have picked the opponents that they likely are running against. Although we should wait and see, though, on the DA race. It is possible that we get more results and that Hatami's number comes up. We remember for the mayor's race, we saw a 10-point swing. So it's not necessarily a foregone conclusion that Nathan Hochman ends up in the top two.
Yeah, Hatami's polling at 12%, of course, deputy DA. So there are 5 people within the office of Gascon taking him on, 11 total challengers. So there's still a lot of votes to count. As just mentioned, just 39% of precincts reporting as we're about to say goodnight to you. So we'll have to see.
He had a lot of backing, too, from law enforcement. Okay, so my takeaway is as we look at these big races that we're going to see in November, if you want change, you got to get out and vote. We know voter turnout was very low. We got big races, and you can't really complain if the person that you would want to have been in the office doesn't get in.
You said decisions are made by people who show up.
Yeah.
Show up.
Show up.
Yeah.
All right. Well, every night we show up to watch Good Night L.A. at this time. So we'll have Good Day L.A. tomorrow morning. But can we all say your line together tonight?
Yes, we can.
All right. Ready on 3?